This is my spot, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, hi folks. We'll make a start. So my name, for those of you who don't know, and those of you watching at home, as it were, is Gerald O'Sullivan. I'm head of the Department of Technology and Enhanced Learning. It's true that department, I suppose, this project we're going to hear about today has been facilitated and through Shane Cronin, who works in the department. Now, as the name of the department suggests, I suppose, hi Brian, we are all about enhancing teaching and learning through technology, enhancing and supporting teaching and learning through technology. The range of technologies that we use is fairly wide. I suppose the most conspicuous one that we provide training and support in would be Blackboard, which I presume most of you are familiar with. Also, there'd be Turnitin, which kind of began life as a plagiarism detection tool, but now has been extended to being a kind of a student feedback type system. We also support Adobe Connect, which is primarily used for online distance education courses, but is sometimes used for this purpose, for streaming live events. But today we're very grateful to Philip here, who's doing something much more sophisticated for us. So also we do a certain amount of research, as John would know, and a certain amount of piloting. And sometimes that research and that piloting finds its way back into the mainstream. So, for example, those people who are here with us today, who were participants in the CIT Creator project, they will receive specially designed digital badges and micro-credentials, and that is something that would have come out of some of the research that we've done. I suppose most of the technology that we support is itself used to support face-to-face delivery, traditional face-to-face delivery, used as a complement for it. So people put up their notes on Blackboard, for example, or they do an assignment there. But we also have an increasing number of fully online distance education courses. So by September, we will have 15 fully online or mostly online courses. So we're getting a bit of traction with that as well. So I guess part of the remit of the department in terms of encouraging people to take that step is to provide these opportunities, which we're going to hear about today, for people to learn to use technology with a certain amount of creativity and a certain amount of confidence. So today we're going to hear about this project that has involved 11 participants over 3 months, finding out, I guess, how to use video in their own practice. Okay, and you can see how that maybe feeds into this notion of supporting teaching and learning through technology. Now, it's an approach we hope to repeat. So we may well decide to put out another call for another technology in the coming academic term. Okay, so it'll work in a similar way again. We'll put out a call for proposals. People can put in proposals, and we provide them with the necessary hardware and training to get to grips with whatever the technology is. We've been talking about maybe doing audio or something like that. So that's a way of saying watch this space, I suppose. But for now, watch this space. I'll let you get on with the day. Okay. So thanks very much.
Okay, everyone. I won't keep you too long now, so we can kind of run into the actual projects. But just maybe to give those of you who haven't maybe seen what the project is about, just a brief overview. So today's event, just in terms of the format, we're going to kick off quite shortly. There'll be a showcase from the individual creators for about an hour, and we might have a brief Q&A, so we might hold the questions until just afterwards, and if you want, we can kind of cycle back to the slides, particular to those creators, and then we might have a bite to eat. Okay. Just I suppose in terms of the goal, and Gerard touched on it there already, the ultimate goal here is to enrich the teaching and learning experience using video. Video, I suppose, traditionally would be seen as something that's quite sort of involved in terms of producing. Now, we can all produce video with our smartphones and our tablets, but if you're going a level further and you're looking to produce something that's more structured and more visually effective and has a narrative to it, all our creators will know today that that takes a bit of planning and a bit of producing. And so you'll see, I suppose, the fruits of that sort of labour over the 5-week course in the minute there with the individual creators. Each creator sort of over that 5-week period learned how to basically shoot, edit and share video in a series of these sessions. At a glance, it was over 5 weeks, although we had the Easter break, which maybe made it 7 weeks in total. There were 11 creators. We had 2 hours of video lesson content online. So a big part of this, and we were talking about it yesterday in a flipped classroom talk, was that the approach here was that all the core learning material was released to the creators online. So a series of video lessons via YouTube and Blackboard were released to the creators every week. And so that would sort of map over to the structure of the course, which was pre-production, kind of shooting scenarios, production, editing, and then publishing and producing the video. A real important thing, and I think all of the creators would agree, is that the workshops were a great space to collaborate and to have peer learning happen. So the big thing was in this flipped classroom approach is that the core learning content was outside of this sort of classroom environment, and that the face-to-face was used to share ideas. A lot of people maybe shared some ideas early on, and they changed their ideas based on that bit of peer feedback, and I think that was quite valuable to people. That's just a view on some of the online lessons there. And just each week, the online lessons were released maybe roughly about half an hour for the video lessons, and then 10 minutes max for an activity based on that lesson. So everyone would have come to the workshops having done a 10-minute max activity, although people might argue that it was a bit longer than 10 minutes, I'd say. There was one-to-one discussions on the project progression, which was in that workshop environment, and again, peer learning. A big part of it as well was a submission of evidence of progress. So as Gerard would have touched on there with the digital badges, our department are working on a project in terms of rolling out the technology for digital badges in the institute. And as part of the evidence gathering process in this, the ultimate goal, I suppose, is to get a badge that maps over to all of the different criteria for each of the different weeks. Okay? So just in terms of the presentation structure, I'm going to hand you over to the individuals now. 6 minutes in total, and each of them will talk about their idea, the process of filming, so how they found the 5 weeks in terms of pre-production right up to the publishing of the video, and just a little bit on what they've learned, which might be of interest to you guys as well, just in terms of what they got out of the project and where they might take their knowledge. And then we'll just play a very short excerpt of the video, around 30 or 40 seconds. So apologies if we've sort of hacked your videos down to 30 seconds, but you'll get a glimpse anyway of what the video is about, and I'm sure we'll be able to publish those videos out to people who are interested after the session today. Okay, so without further ado, this is the lineup here from John McAleer, Jim O'Malley and Lorraine, Colin Warrick, Eileen O'Leary and Lee, Ashton Conway, Morris Cleary, Thomas Broderick and Gwen Lettuce. So we're going to go in that order. We're going to keep them to around 5 minutes, and Dara will give you the minute left sort of a flag in front here, and I'll do a bit of queuing up here. So John, over to you. So you can kind of navigate through the slides with this fella here.
Thanks, Shane.
For water.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John McAleer, and I write European projects for CIT. And in a number of them, I do a bit of work as well on projects in relation to some of the research. The project I want to talk about in terms of creator is the Cool Route project. And COOL stands for Cruising Oceans on Latitudes above 51 degrees north. So it's about marketing the whole northwestern seaboard of Europe, from Cork up to Tromsø in northern Norway, marketing that for marine tourism basically.
with an emphasis on yachting, super yachting and small liners, where the emphasis was on. So I thought first of all I didn't fit into the general model in that it wasn't a lesson I was doing, but I then realised as I progressed that in fact it was a lesson. My idea basically was based on the fact that in this project it's aimed, the ultimate focus of the project is on small enterprises from Cork right around the west of Ireland, up over Northern Ireland, all the way up Scotland, Faroe Islands and all the way up Norway. So it's about 2,500 miles distance, and we want to contact all coastal SMEs with a message that marine tourism brings business to them, and that's why we were funded. We're funding of about 1.2 million, and the aim of it is to actually develop business opportunities for marine tourists. People can even see it in Cork. You know, you've got a liner coming into Cork, or into Cove is a better example, and 10 buses pick up the liner to bring everybody out to Blarney. There's not a bob left in Cove. Why? Because there are no offerings in Cove to park the passengers and their cash. That's about the size of it. So we wanted to get this message out to enterprises and local communities on a very large geographical area. Now we use social media very extensively in the project, Facebook and Twitter in particular, but also the website, newsletters and things like that. And we've done a lot of studies and reports. But when it comes, I know from experience that if I produce or CIT produces a 30-page document saying on the opportunities for enterprises, nobody's going to read it. In reality, like if we start posting that out or emailing it out to guys with ship vans or pubs or walking tours, whatever, they're not going to read a 30-page document. So it struck me that if I could get a 3-minute video getting the message directly across of what we want to do, and then use social media then to get traction to the video and the message we want to get out, and then we'll follow that up with meetings on the ground later. So that was the idea. I came to the guys here with the idea, and they said fine, it did fit into their criteria for what they wanted to do. So we had I don't know, am I gone too far? I don't know. Oh yeah, what's the filming? The process basically was that I was asked to write 500 words in total for each segment of it. 250 words for each segment. I had 2 segments of 500 words. And that then I'd have to film it and get a couple of victims or actors or whatever, which fortunately I did. That Breda Kenny, or whatever, which fortunately I did. That Breda Kenny here, and Gavin Dean, the Royal Cork Yacht Club. So I filmed them, and then I edited it together. I had some footage myself that I'd taken last year off the boat at Dolphins, and I got a tricky thing to do something like that. That worked out well. But anyway, I got the thing together. It's a bit utilitarian, I suppose, in that I think if I was going to do it again this week, I'd probably improve on what I did last week. But look, I got the message across. I got a message there from a guy up on an island in Scotland just last night to say that they were fixing up for the local community bus to drop by the marina in future to take fellas off boats to the pub. And that's what it's about, basically. So it is getting the message out. What I learned, I suppose it was a lot to learn really in it. There was a lot of trial and error in it. I mean, I filmed things a couple of times. I learned that you can edit things fairly well, but it's interesting, but not that easy to do. I learned that filming outdoors can be tricky, and the most of all, I learned that the little rubbery thing that came in the box was not packing, it was actually a guard for the microphone. I didn't spot that at the time, unfortunately, so it's windy in places. So, am I sure am I putting that on?
I can play it whenever you're ready. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can, so yeah. So this is just a shot of it. I don't know what he's going to show.
I'm Dr. Breda Kenny. I'm head of the Hume Centre for Entrepreneurship Excellence at Cork Institute of Technology. CIT is leading the Coolwood project, and I'm the project manager.
Hello, my name is Gavin Dean. I'm General Manager of the Royal Cork Yacht Club here in Castle, Cork, Ireland. Royal Cork is a partner in the Cool Route, and we have responsibility to lead partners research and development of the marketing strategy for it.
Alright. Quite short, but yes,
Yeah,
sir.
right, thank you. That's me done, is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for the advice. As I said now, the little excerpts probably don't give everyone justice, so just, I suppose, to be cognizant, they're 30-second clips of much larger little projects by these people. Okay.
Okay, afternoon everyone. So my name is Jim OMalley. I'm a lecturer in the biology department here in CIT, and together with Lorraine Anderson, we were very lucky and very fortunate to be involved in this creator project. So as I said, I'm a biology lecturer. I teach on mainly the pharmaceutical biotechnology program, and as the name suggests, pharmaceutical biotechnology is about training students in very technical aspects in relation to biotechnology. So much of the teaching that we do is in a laboratory environment. About half of every teaching component that we do happens in a laboratory. So we had the idea that maybe we could use video as an instructional tool for our students. And we had what we thought was a brilliant idea, which was to come up with a suite of instructional videos. But talking to people who are more knowledgeable than we are in this field, we learned that instructional videos are quite passive. So we had to try and refine and adopt our idea to make it a little bit more engaging for the students. So what we decided to do was to try and create a series of videos with some very subtle but very glaring mistakes that wouldn't really be suited to good practical technique. And the idea was then to play the video for the students and to see if they could pick up these subtle mistakes, given the fact that they should have known the proper technique. So that was the idea, which was refined over a number of weeks. The process of filming, as John and Shane have already said, took place over a period of 5 weeks, where the first week or two was really about pre-production, about thinking about your idea, refining your idea, deciding on whether you wanted to use a script. In our case, we decided not to use a script because we just wanted them to focus on the video, the content, and not to be distracted by soundtrack or audio, just literally to focus on the procedure that was taking place in the lab. Also, we had to get used to the camera. Now, in my mind, I'm still 12 years old, so if someone says to me that you can have a camera and you can play with it for 5 weeks, that to me is a validation that I really am 12 years old. So we spent a bit of time working with it, getting used to the camera. That took a little bit of time. One of the biggest challenges I think we had, and I've spoken to a lot of people working in kind of similar lab-based environments, would be that the trying to get a good shot of someone up close is quite difficult because you're working in an environment where it's quite cluttered. Sometimes their hands kind of block what you want them to show. So we came up with an idea of using a microphone stand with a large boom angle on it, so we could film from above and from the side, and it gave a really nice angle, and it stopped this blocking effect that we saw when we tried to use the camera on the bench. So the process of filming, it did take quite a lot of time, quite a lot of effort. Working in a laboratory environment we thought was tricky to find the right spot, the location, the angle of shooting and so on. But over a period of 2 or 3 attempts, we got to a point where we were quite happy with the video we produced. I think as John said, he repeated his video a couple of times. We've done 3 videos, and certainly the third one is about 3 or 4 times better than the first one, even though we thought the first one was excellent. So one thing we definitely learned is that practice certainly makes perfect, and there's no substitute for refining the idea, refining your style of shooting, refining the editing that you do so that you get it right down to exactly what you feel is most appropriate for the student. I suppose we also learned that it's important to be open to new ideas. I think there's a fantastic community of practice being developed around using videos, and traditionally I think people are maybe locked in the idea of lecturing as a very kind of passive, I'd stand and 15 minutes of material, which can can be really, really enriched by using media like video. So we're certainly open to the idea of using this for many other projects in the future. Okay. That's a high angle shot, so it's not easy to get up that high without some apparatus. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shane.
You just 2 seconds, Colin. No, it is, but it's not connected. Sorry, Colin, just 2 seconds there. I'll just cue that up there. Okay.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Colin Warrick. I'm working in the library here at CIT, and we have a thing in the libraries about trying to get students in and to use the resources within the library itself and online. And of course, increasingly so now, everything is online. But many students are maybe anxious about coming into the library and don't tend to. So the idea was to create a video or a series of videos that would encourage students to do that and to use the online resources that we have available to them, and to sort of get them away from the whole Google idea and to look at online databases, academic databases. So my idea essentially was to create a series of videos that would, you know, as I say, encourage students to come in, which is the video I created here was a sort of an advert, and then to kind of progress those in a series of videos that would demonstrate why and how to best use academic online resources and databases. So the process of filming, it was interesting. I must say it was very, you know, it was quite a frustrating initially in terms of the recording process itself. I really, the script, I noticed I had about 250 words sort of, but I felt that was too many words for the piece I was actually recording. So I cut it back to about 100 words and left some space within the video itself. So that was interesting, but in terms of getting those 100 words on camera, I don't know how much time I spent facing the camera, and you know, there's a fantastic gag reel available somewhere online where my frustration is very evident. But the process itself was very good in terms of editing that afterwards, and the technology, the web-based editing tool that we used was very user-friendly, and it was quite easy to use, and I really enjoyed that whole aspect of editing the thing down. You know, so what I learned from the experience, well, I learned a whole pile really. The very fact that I can now create a video is fantastic for myself personally, and you know, hopefully in the context of the library and developing further library videos. You know, I mean, I've got the groundwork done here thanks to the lads. As well, I learned just how much work is involved in producing a video. You know, it is quite, it's like, you know, it is I mean, it took quite a number of hours every day to try and get this thing together. And what I learned as well, I suppose at the end of it, was just how absorbed I was in the production of it, and how much I enjoyed the experience of attending the workshops, but creating the video itself, you know, it was just I was so absorbed in it that you know, it made me want to go on and make the rest of the series of videos straight away. So you know, that was about it really. Yeah.
Have you ever tried to find and source high quality academic information online? Sources of information that you can use in your written assignments. A source of information that you can use to back up your thesis. Sources of information that help you to get better grades and achieve academic success. Well, we here in the library know a lot about information. We know how to search, source, access and deliver high quality academic content. As registered students here at CIT, you have access to a wide range of academic e-journal databases.
Excellent, Colin. Is that your presentation? Here you go. Just the right click there, yeah.
So good afternoon everybody. My name is Dougherty and this presentation was made in conjunction with Eileen O'Leary, and we are basically looking at the chemical techniques in the lab and instructing on that. I think Jim O'Malley stole our idea. We were there first. Okay. So yes, I know that was purely random. So again, our idea was to video basic laboratory techniques that are used across the Department of Chemical Science in chemistry. We teach to about 400 first-year students, and we are limited on resources with time, space, and people. And so we have to try and get our students in, teach them the technique, and hopefully they'll learn from it. Because let's say the huge chemical industry, biopharmaceutical industry, they need these laboratory techniques. It's not something they can just read in a book. They need hands-on practice. Previously, they would have done it in the lab, but those time resources have been cut back. So now we're looking at putting demonstrations up online for the students to look at, to watch, to see how things are done properly, and again answer questions on those demonstrations. When they come into the lab then, we have this flipped classroom approach whereby they now know the technique, or should know the technique coming in, and we can spend more time correcting the technique rather than trying to explain to them what it is in that precious time. There's kind of a carrot and stick approach to it as well, that we will, again, as Jim outlined, there will be questions up on Blackboard about this technique, answer questions on it, and they will get credit for it. If they don't watch the movie, and they, again through Blackboard we can monitor that, they won't be allowed into the lab and they lose those lab marks. So there's the carrot and stick approach to it. Well, that's our general idea, and we hope to roll it out over the next while. So for our process for this film, we just picked one very, very simple methodology, and it's a simple one, just weighing out a solid sample. And we did it into lab, an empty lab. It was clear, it was bright. So we had our script ready. Wasn't much of a script, ours was more of a storyboard, and that we had what scenes we would like to take, and we ran through our process. I think we took about 6 different shots, or 6 different scenes. We ran through the whole process 6 different times from different angles, and it was only then the editing software then really pulled it together. So the moral of my story would be, when we get to what we learned is take as many different shots as possible and then use the editing scenario to bring it all together. When we were looking at when I was doing the editing, there was glare all over everything, there was different lighting, there was muffled noises in the background even though we had the audio turned off. These are things that you don't see. There was poor angles where we weren't filling the frame. There was other angles where my hands were in front of the camera and not showing the technique. So these are all things that we only learned during the process of it. Going forward, the next techniques should be much easier, not easier, but better planned, or we've knocked the edges off it now at this stage. Okay, and I think so that's what we learned. It is doable. It's very doable. There's a lot of time and effort put into it, especially the editing. Very, very interesting, but very, very time consuming. It's the 80-20 rule. You get 80%, or you spend 80% of your time on the 20% of that little bit that you want to perfect. But it's easy to get an okay job. It's more difficult to get a very nice professional job. So hopefully our video turned out okay. Oops. Sorry.
Good.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. My name is Ashton Conway and I'm a lecturer in the Department of Management and Enterprise in the School of Business. My project or ideas really is the student was in front of the camera and I was behind, so I suppose there was a bit less pressure than Colin, for example. I suppose where my idea came from is where we often use presentations as parts of our assessments, and I often see, when students present, the students sitting in front, they often miss the important aspects of that particular student's presentation, in that they're so nervous about their own, they're not really concentrating on their colleagues. So in terms of what I was looking at, I taught a master's class this semester and they were looking at economics, global markets. So my idea was that, they all do separate 11 pieces of individual research. And when it came to the presentation, they were all going to present on that. And, they all bring really important, interesting information. And my point was that it wouldn't be lost. That if I recorded it, the students could go back and look at it. And what I did in the end then was I actually incorporated it into their final exam, so that there was a motivation to go back and look at it. So my idea really was twofold, two objectives. One was that reason I just mentioned to you about that you have 11 pieces of individual research and that it wasn't going to be lost. My second objective was around students, and that, you record their presentation, that they could go back individually and look back on their own presentation and critique their own presentation skills, their delivery, analyse and so on, and that's something that they could take from this. The publishing software we used for this project was through YouTube, and you have the option through YouTube to make it unlisted so that it's private. So I did use YouTube, but it's not available for everybody to see, only the students if they want to pass it on to somebody else. The process of filming, a few of the colleagues here have already touched on the script, and I suppose it's like anything, the more prepared you are, the better the outcome is going to be. And I'm definitely a person who likes to be prepared, because you get stressed and you're worried about the outcome if you don't have that preparation. So about a week before the presentations took place, I went over, because I used one of the rooms over in college in the B block, just one of the regular classrooms, and I went over and I set up the actual video, and Shane and the lads gave us a tripod. So this is all new for me, I would never have used something like this before, and I actually thought I'd be sitting at the back of the room, and screen was here, the student would be here, and that's where I would be placed. But actually it turned out I ended up just sitting at the front, just to the left. That was the best position, and you don't find those things out unless you go and do the groundwork first. Alright, but there's a lot to think about in terms of lighting, where the student should stand, the audio, the room itself, in terms of noise outside the classroom and so on. So there's a lot to think about. In terms of what I've learned is huge. I think about any piece of technology that you get stuck into, the learning curve is always quite steep. But I always think the benefits always outweigh the costs. Shane and his colleagues showed us to use an editing software called WeVideo. Again, something that I don't think many of us were familiar with. Very easy piece of software to use. And I always think with technology as well, there's a great sense of satisfaction when you finally can master something. Yes, it takes the time to do it, and it can be frustrating, but the rewards are quite huge. And just in terms of Shane and his colleagues, I suppose, they were quite patient. Shane is a very laid-back kind of guy, so I think he needs to be in terms of, when you're dealing with technology and so on, but they were very helpful. They were always at the end of the phone call if you were in trouble, so that was very much appreciated. In terms of the video before I show it, this is one of the students in that master's class. So this particular student looked at the Portuguese economy, and one of the remits of the presentation was they had to use images. So she's talking about Portugal, and they had to do an economic analysis of it. So I'm not sure, I didn't see the edited version down now, so I'm not sure how much is left, but we'll see.
Ashton.
I'm just relaxing for the next presentation. Okay, so my name is Maurice Cleary. I suppose my output or input into this process was I'm coming from a different environment than most of the rest of you. That I'm not a lecturer here, I'm the safety officer for science and engineering. So what I was looking at was the daunting task of how we would ensure that everybody had the required safety training. For example, how many people here are trained in the safety statement? Put your hands up straight away. Okay, so there we are. So there's a challenge in terms of achieving safety training on a campus with over 800 staff. And my idea really was to try and put as many hours as I would have to put in myself into presenting a very short video presentation, and that I would then send out by e-learning to the staff. So that even if I had to put 40 hours into getting a 5-minute presentation together, it would then go out onto the campus and I could get it recorded and I'd have people trained and I could be working on the next module. So I think safety training could lend itself to that. So really that was my idea, was to learn how to use a video, which I suppose I was delighted to see there was the opportunity to do it. So that was the idea, was to really get into e-learning and be able to use it. The process of filming I found very interesting, like everybody else here. I went around first of all with my mic or my camera, and I went out around. I said I'd take a picture of the assembly points because I was going to look at, first of all, the fire alarm system. And I discovered, you know, that there were issues with taking outside shots and all the kind of the pluses and minuses. I would say I did spend a lot longer on this project than I had anticipated I would, but I do feel I didn't mind that because I was learning, and it was. I think the next time I'll do it, it'll be shorter and shorter. So hopefully I'll be getting more output and less effort as time goes on. So the process of filming for me was, you know, getting the visual bit out, getting the audio. My son makes beat music. He manufactures beats, so he sent me one of his beats, so I put a bit of music on it. But it was just very interesting to see how you could use the software then to put the whole lot together. And you know, obviously, if you knew at the end of it, if you knew that earlier on, you do a lot of things differently. But it was just a very, I found it a very positive experience, the learning experience. And again, to the guys, to Shane and to Dara, the help we got and the quality of the material that was sent out to us was exceptional, I think. So this flipped classroom concept I found very, very good and very kind of motivating. So what I learned really was that I actually can do it. And I suppose, to quote Roy Keane, fail to prepare. Definitely when it comes to making a video, if you haven't gone to the bother of making out your script and you haven't got to the bother of just wording it out, seeing how many minutes it takes, you'll find out the hard way that it's not fitting together. So I learned really that it's all about preparation. But really what I learned was that I actually can do it. And I suppose that was the big thing, to know that I can do it and that it can be a useful output. So I'm interested to see how much of it.
I want to talk to you today about 3 aspects of emergency response on campus. Number 1, I want to look at smoke and gas detectors. Secondly, I want to look at fire extinguishers and their use. And finally, I want to look at what happens when we get a fire alarm and the assembly points around the campus.
It's called the double knock system and is widely used. Smoke detector activation. A local intermittent alarm sounds in the area affected. Simultaneously, a vehicle flashes at the caretaker's office.
Thanks, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas Broderick. I work in Department of Sport, Leisure and Childhood Studies. A lot of our students, when they graduate, they'll kind of go into areas of personal training with their clients. So hands up here who's been to a gym maybe before, has worked in that setting, or has been, okay, good. Or a lot of them will go into an area maybe working with professional teams or athletes in the area of strength and conditioning. So the idea was really to introduce them to a theoretical model or framework in which, when they're planning exercises for their clients or prescribing exercises, that, you know, to give them a framework in which to base that decision on. And then also the idea was to demonstrate some exercises to them that they could use with their clients in in this setting. The idea came from a student, Conrad Hammersley, who's a maths student in our department, and he delivered a workshop to our students on this kind of concept, and I thought it would be very good to have a video that we could use to show our students into the future. Now, if I wasn't a departmental, if I didn't work in the department, I didn't ask you to stand up to be something wrong, so I'm going to ask everyone to stand up for a second, if you could. I just want to, I think, just give an idea of what this concept is. I just want you to, as you're standing, just kind of roll your ankle as much as possible. Just keep your foot flat on the ground and move your ankle back and forward in different directions. Okay, so within the body, there's a primary function within joints. So the ankle has a role to be mobile. Does that make sense to people? And then the knee has a role to be stable. And as we move up from the ankle to the knee to the hip, it alternates between mobility and stability. So help me out here. If this is ankle mobility, knee stability, what do you think the function of the hip is? Mobility. And then we've got stability, mobility, stability, and mobility. I'm going to ask you to sit down, but I want you to do something before you stall. Oh, back over again. I want you to try and sit down, but I want you to try and get as far away from your chair as possible. And try and see, can you sit down then comfortably onto your chair? Okay. Yeah. Morris, have we cleared that, Morris? Have we? So for you to do that, you need, the body needs to be able to be mobile here, stable here, mobile, and you need to do that. So I think we look at maybe exercise or exercise prescription, maybe as athletes, but I think for the general population as we get older, we need to make sure that we have that function. So that was the idea. And I need to acknowledge Conor Hammersley, who you'll see in the video, you know, maybe suggesting it. The process maybe for the video was looking at, you know, deciding on what we would talk about, what that's called the joint by joint approach. That's the framework. So we decided we'd do that, coming up with a script that would be clear and concise for the students, and deciding on where to film the shots. And I think one of the key challenges was, I think, trying to get filming that demonstrate exercises that were very accurate and effective that our students could use. And then go from there in, as people talked about, using the software, using the wee video, engaging with that, and trying to come up with linking the introduction in terms of introduction to the actual framework, and then demonstrating exercises that our students could use with, you know, with the general population, with clients that they're working with. I think challenges around it, I think, in terms of what I learned from engaging that whole process. The first one I learned is that when I turn on a camera, I tend to develop an American accent for some reason. I don't know what that case is, but that's what happens. So I think, as people have acknowledged, trying to practice that and actually hear your voice can be a challenge. And I think learning to spend time, you know, practicing, making the mistakes, laughing those off, and kind of going again. That was, I think, one area I learned. Also, I think you need a personal assistant, if that can be correct. On the day we were down in the Tyco building out the back here, and when I was recording the first element, the introduction to the framework, people were coming in and out. There was a lot of noises, so we had to stop. So the next time, I think I might just put in crime scene, LA shoot or something, so people stay out of the building for the day. And also, you see the video when I went to talk through the script. I had the script behind me, and I look over the camera at times to read the script. You know, I had it up on a board, so you'll see that in the video. That's something I would change. I think engaging with the wee video, the actual software, is very rewarding. It takes time, and I wish I used Darren's videos first instead of trying to think, oh, I know all this stuff. And so we spent a lot of time engaging the software, but then using the videos, engaging the software, I think we get a lot from it. And I think maybe one thing I learned, I think in credit to the guys that were involved in it, the kind of outlining the framework allowed, I think, gave a motivation or a sense of achievement and a purpose and a direction. So we'll have this video to use now for our students in the future, and hopefully they'll be able to understand the framework, engage in it, and use it with their clients into the future. So thanks for listening, and we'll get an idea here maybe. That's Connor.
When developing an exercise program with your client, it is important to base your exercise selection on solid principles and theories. One such principle is the joint-by-joint approach, as developed by Greg Cook and Mike Boyle. To demonstrate this concept, let's highlight the primary need of each joint from the ankle to the shoulder. So when you're developing a program for your client, consider the joint-by-joint approach and ask yourself the question, are you addressing the primary need of the joint segment in your training program?
Thanks.
Okay. So our last presenter today is Gwen Levis.
Brought notes and everything.
Here you go.
Thank you. I've no exercises, lads. Just me, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm Gwen. I know a good few people here today anyway. But I am in the media communications department, so you might think that I should know all of this stuff already, okay? So I'm a graphic designer, but I suppose my main area would be graphic design for print. And even though I have done video in the past, it's a long time ago. So I had started to become a little bit of a dinosaur, really, you know, and I was kind of looking at my own students and kind of saying they're way ahead of me, you know, with what's going on here. And that tends to happen, I think, in the design discipline, where they're kind of becoming almost better at the technology and kind of video and stuff like that than I am. So I just kind of started to make steps and just kind of put my hand up and say, I've got to do something about this. So I had about 5 ideas, I think. I think I spent maybe the first 3 weeks kind of coming up with my ideas. Just small issues really, just in terms of timing. Like, first one was that I wanted to teach the students to actually complete videos for presentations for their 4th year graduate show, but the show doesn't open until next week, so that wasn't an option. Then the next was I had an expert coming over from the US to do some workshops. I was going to interview her. It was going to be great for my PhD that I'm doing. We hadn't gotten the videos yet, and it was too aspirational anyway, you know, so everything was getting knocked back. So eventually I kind of decided to do a short series of 3 videos. Eventually, when I wrote the script, I realized that wasn't going to work either, because it really was too long. So I cut it down to 1 video, but then that 1 video became 5 videos. So I think, you know, talking about the script, talking about like what the, like in theory you have an amount of words that, you know, your written script becomes, you know, I can't remember exactly what the equation is, like what 200 words for an amount of seconds or whatever, but I think I started when I got more comfortable with talking on video, because I'd agree with you, Thomas, like at the start I was like, you know, following my script and I was, you know, but then after a while I started to kind of ad-lib a little bit, and that became great for the video, I think, but it wasn't great for the script. So I found that I had lots more material, and as well as that, the start and the end of each section was all out of whack because I hadn't said exactly what I thought I was going to say. So linking it up together and editing it became a problem. So I had to go back and do some reshooting. So, you know, the light was a little bit different, you know, I had to make sure I put on the same clothes, so the continuity was all the same, make sure I didn't do it better than I'd done it the first time, you know, so there was all kinds of issues like that, but again, that's all in the learning, I suppose. Another part of that part, the shooting, I think, that I found as well, was for me, like, there was certain things that I should have known about, like composition and lighting, because, you know, I kind of have a background in photography as well, to a degree. But sound wouldn't be something that I'd really know a lot about. So, you know, I think I could learn a lot more in that kind of, in that area. So sorry, I should have moved that on there. So I've gone through the ideas that I did have. The idea that I stuck with was creating graphic mock-ups. So this is something that our first years would have to learn for various projects. The idea of actually physically putting a mock-up together to show a client what a kind of a piece of graphic design would look like, whatever that was. So I just decided to put a really simple A4 folded to A5 mock-up together, and just kind of went through the stages of that, really, I suppose. And again, like I said, it was going to be 1 video, but then once I started to go through it, you go through, you know, a lot of detail in terms of your script, so it ended up again being rolled out to be a much longer series of videos. So I've already kind of, I'm going backwards, I've already kind of gone through the process of filming a little bit. The glamour, I'm going to give a little bit away now, you know, the glamour of the location, like it just looks like, you know, kind of a workplace or whatever, but it's actually my back room that looks out onto my garden. So you can get away with all kinds of things, like with video. I took pictures off the wall to make it look like a blank white space behind me and look all professional, so you can get away with murder. And you know, like Shane might have chosen a little part of it where there's a little shadow that accidentally goes across the workspace, we'll say. That's my dog going past, you know. So there's all kinds of things like that, but you can get away with things, I suppose. And I chose there because it was quiet. Like a lot of people have been talking about their sound, you know, issues. I chose there because I was trying to do it in work and I was going, this isn't going to happen. So that was it. So what I learned then, besides learning a lot about video, I think I found the experience of actually learning through the kind of flipped classroom and the online videos actually gave me ideas for my teaching myself. So being engaged with you guys and actually learning and getting familiar with some other stuff that you've got up there as well was really useful for me. And as well as that, it was great to meet other people and see what other people are doing. You can kind of get very kind of focused in your own area and forget that there's lots of interesting people doing lots of interesting things, you know. So that's it, I guess, yeah. Ooh, don't see me.
Hi everybody, so today we're going to be talking about graphic mock-ups, and the purpose of a graphic mock-up is to show the client or the end user what the physical outcome of the design will look like. So this can be done manually, for example, by drawing or copying and pasting, or digitally, or a combination of both. So in this case, the design has been applied digitally and the graphic is placed on the And if we kind of go back to this side, you can see that if this is the outside of the graphic, this will be the front cover and this is the back cover. And if you turn it around again, the blank side here, this will be the inside front cover and this will be the inside of the back.
Good, thanks, Greg. I feel like we should have shown the end product there at the end, right? So that's it, folks. We did get apologies from Chris and Edge, who were involved in the project as well. They weren't able to make it today, but I suppose there's a great deal of variation. Nice to see so many different projects that went on in this project. It was the first version of the project, I guess, and as Garrod was saying, we'd hope to run it again in the next academic year, maybe in some sort of a different medium, perhaps. Just to say a few thanks, really, to, first of all, obviously to everyone, all of the creators who were fantastic and very patient as well, and giving of their time, because I know you're all very busy people, and especially coming up to time correction times and stuff like that, to take the time and to be able to take the time today to tell everyone about your projects is great. So I'd like to give every one of those people a hula bus, please. I'd like to thank Dara Coakley and Roisin as well, who were excellent in the workshops and in the online lessons. Dara did some great videos on the Wii video editing platform, so thanks to you guys as well. And finally, I suppose just to say, I suppose the thing, in terms of everyone's projects, that you could see them as stepping stones. I think each creator would agree that they'll take what they did learn and produce, something in the next academic year, in the next few months. And I suppose everyone at that level learned that they could produce something in a stage 2. It was a pilot for them, really, and you only got, I suppose, to see little glimpses of that in the 30 seconds of video, which don't do them justice, in fairness. We're sort of limited in what time we could give today. But I think there's some great stuff there, very promising, and I look forward to seeing the rest of your videos in the future. So thanks very much. And sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't think we should finish without thanking Shane, who really is the main force behind the project. So Shane.
I suppose we said we'd have a Q&A. Do any of you have any questions for our individual creators or for us in general? We have a few minutes before the food. Mike.
Is it possible to view the videos, the full clips of the videos?
I think, yeah, I think definitely after this. I don't have them here now, Michael, but I think with permission of you guys, we'll release those videos as a playlist afterwards. And likewise, if anyone is interested in the sort of learning material, you know, the videos. I suppose if you wanted to sort of dip your toes into the whole video production side of things, we'd be happy to release those to you as well. So.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the camera that you used?
Oh, sorry, yeah, no bother. So I have it here actually. It is quite a little dinky camera. I can pass it around there. It's a Zoom Q4A, and you know, I suppose they Zoom is. I don't know if you're familiar with Zoom. They do. They're an audio device manufacturer. So one of the big sort of strengths of that camera is in audio and producing high quality audio. You can actually use it as a dictaphone as well, just as a standalone device for audio recording. And so just, I suppose, as a no-fuss kind of a camera, for someone starting out with video, it's quite good. I think you guys might agree. It's an intuitive interface. It doesn't go into very many manual settings, so you are kind of at the mercy of sort of automatic settings to a degree. But I think for everyday use, it's definitely a runner. I suppose it's a thing that you could warm up in the video side of things as well. You could maybe graduate onto something more prosumer after that if you had the appetite. But definitely a step up from what you'd get from maybe a camera phone anyway. And again, I think with everyone's projects, audio is really important. I know that Jim and William and Lee and Eiley, yours had a very specific purpose and you didn't need audio, but where you do need voiceover or where you want to record sort of ambient sounds and stuff like that is definitely where to go. So that camera is being passed around the room there if you want to have a look at it. Any other questions, guys? Hi.
Yeah, could I ask Jim a question? Because to me the most interesting thing that was mentioned in the whole procedure, and I was fascinated by the technicalities involved, but the word that came across that Jim mentioned was passive. That videos tend to be passive. What was his feedback? What was his feedback from the students? Have you tried it on the students, and was there a response in relation to that element of passivity? Because as far as I'm concerned, when I mentioned to my students that the most important piece of technology that I want them to have is a pencil and rubber, they all groan initially, but in actual fact, it's about the exact opposite to the stuff that we're engaged in today. How did you find, Jim, could I ask you?
We haven't tried it with them yet. What we have done is shown it to a few postgrads who should know the techniques really well, and they had great fun trying to outcompete each other, looking for the errors and the mistakes. But we haven't tried it in a classroom setting yet. But we plan to do so next year. The passive videos certainly have a role to play, but you know, by embellishing them a little bit, by adding a little bit of interactivity to it, I think is hugely important. And as Lee said there earlier as well, another way of kind of getting past the whole passive exercise of videos would be to introduce questions, you know, multiple choice questions, stop the video at certain points. There's certainly lots of software options to allow us to make what would be very passive videos a little bit more interactive. So next year we hope to try it in a module setting and give us some feedback maybe to people at that stage.
There was some interesting sort of results as well from Tom O'Malley yesterday in the flipped classroom kind of seminar, where he had sort of results from the students on engagement, because he had kind of piloted it for, I think it was a semester, Jim, was it?
Yeah.
And he had mixed results, I suppose. He had students who might not be very suited to the face-to-face and were actually engaging completely online and not coming into the face-to-face workshop kind of collaborative space. And then you had, I think, a big result out of it was the engagement with assessment materials. So having something where you say to the students, you can't come in, like Leah and Eileen were saying, you can't come into a workshop without having gone through this material, or even having maybe answered a few questions, whether they be right or wrong, which is the big thing. You're not penalising them for getting a wrong answer, you're asking them to engage with it. And I think, as Jim was saying as well, there are so many tools which we'd be happy to cover in the department, like video assessment tools, which not just maybe have a question before the video, but stop the video maybe halfway through and ask someone, what's your opinion on this? And then maybe compare their answer with the rest of the class kind of thing afterwards. So that kind of thing is interesting, where it's not so linear maybe as a process.
I think video-based assessment could be very interesting as well. You know, it can really subsume a lot of what students might do, be it an interview or a performance or a project or a presentation. So and you hopefully get people moving in that direction a little bit as well, just as an alternative to all the written coursework and final exams.
That's something that we were thinking of doing, because it's one thing to demonstrate a skill to a student, it's another thing to know that the student now has that skill. So getting them to record themselves doing that technique and submit it, and even if they have to record it 10 times like we do, it means that they're perfecting it each time.
That's
they
right.
record it. So it's an assessment.
And you know, there could be a peer review process, or certainly a self-reflection piece where they look at it again and decide whether, as you said, whether they've perfected it.
That's right. And as a general rule, students won't submit something that they don't think is perfect, so it does push them to do it until they get it right. So.
And one thing to note as well, actually, with the editing software, you don't have, like, say if you recorded something that's 5 minutes long and you made a mistake, you don't have to do the 5 minutes again. You can just go back to that part where you made a mistake, and with the editing software, then you can just insert it in. So it's quite useful in that regard. And one thing I meant to say as well is, like, we're all busy when we get these emails, and sometimes we're so tunnel visioned in what we're doing and we can't bring our head above water. But I would say though, like, the benefits of this and similar projects that you run is huge. I know it's a big investment in time, but as I said, the benefits outweigh the costs. So that's just
one more thing that's it's in relation to the flipped classroom is, I suppose the video is there as to complement what you'll be teaching them. So if they had a look at it before they come in, and then they can apply it using a pencil and paper, because in chemistry I would still get them scribbling, you know, even if they have material beforehand.
Scribbling is the most important thing of all. Engagement.
It's the muscle memory idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, folks?
So the question I have is in relation to e-learning, and say if I want to do safety training, can I get a system that will latch onto my video and that will be an auditable, credible system that, say, if the HSA come in and say, can I see your training records, that I can produce something that's, you know, do this .com, but is this a validated system? Do I get worried with it? So for me, that's the next step, is to get onto getting the video, training video, which for me now I can do. But the next thing is that a credible kind of assessment system that can be as a record, or does CIT have something like that already?
You can do that stuff in the learning management system. We've worked with quite a lot of mainly corporate clients, I suppose, in the regulatory space, like banks and so on. And it's definitely possible to work in frameworks that sort of validate the sort of assessments that you'd be talking about. So I wouldn't see that as being a barrier at all, Morris. So one last thing before we have food, there's a couple of more talks on next week that you might be interested in. Dr. Francis Boylan in DIT is going to talk about mobile applications in teaching and learning. So you might be familiar with this 12 apps at Christmas thing. It was an initiative, it's gone on for a few years now. It's worth a look, and all of these sessions as well are delivered online, so you could view the recording afterwards if you want. But just interesting if you're looking at things like in-class mobile tools and so on, and probably touching on a few of the things we've talked about here already. And one final one then is a lady called Sheila McNeil on learning analytics. So again, learning analytics is quite a topical area. I think it's going to gain a lot more traction really in the next few years as we kind of collect more data on our students and how they engage with material and attendance, and not stuff's just surface level, so much more. And she did a talk for Garrod on the e-learning masters there recently, and it was really excellent. So I would advise, you know, if you have the time, those two dates, the 23rd and 25th, it's next week. Those talks are I think in this room actually, and they'll be delivered online as well. So that's all, folks. Thanks a million for coming, and there's a bit of food outside in the foyer. Cheers. And thanks to Philip as well. Thanks for that.